Hey there, I'm Josh from Synty Studios, and in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to set up an animation controller. By the end of this tutorial, you'll know the basics of setting up an animation controller, state machines, and avatar masking to blend layers. This will allow you to aim while running around. I'm going to be combining Synty bow animations with our base Locomotion pack, which already has an animation controller set up. We're going to add the bow animations on top of that, which means we'll already have a working Locomotion system so we can run around, crouch, sprint, jump, and more. However, the general principles in this video will still apply even if you don't have these asset packs. In order to get started, I've created a new blank 3D URP project. In it, I've imported the Synty base Locomotion animation pack and the bow combat animation pack. I've then loaded the gallery psychic level in the bow animation pack. Our animation packs come with animations for both Polygon and psychic characters, because the proportions are slightly different and psychics have a full 5 fingers. In this video, we're going to be working with sidekicks. Let's get started by bringing a character controller into the scene. Let's go to the animation base Locomotion folder, go to the samples, and go to the prefabs folder. In here, we have a few prefabs to get started quickly. Our sample character can lock onto targets. Let's drag this target into the scene to use later. Next, we'll place our character. We include a Polygon one and a psychic one. Let's start with the psychic one and drag it into the scene. If we'd like to modify the player's settings, we can do that now. Let's go to the player game object in the hierarchy and expand it. Then we can select the first child game object called Sidekick Synty Character and go to its settings. I'm going to turn off Always Strafe. This will allow us to run towards the camera and get a better view of our character from different angles. Now let's delete the camera from the scene in the hierarchy. That will make it so that the camera in our character gets priority and we can click play and try it out. As you can see, we're now able to run around with our base Locomotion animated character. And we're also able to crouch, sprint, and slide. There's also the lock on feature. We can enable it by hitting the middle mouse button to lock onto a target. However, we'd like to be able to use the bow animations in conjunction with this. We have all these nice bow animations over here, so let's work on building an archer. The first step is going to be going to our animation controller and setting up a layer for our bow animations. We can easily get to our existing animation controller by selecting our character, going to the Sidekick Synty character, and then selecting the AC controller on the right. That will navigate to it and select it in the asset browser, allowing us to double click it to open it up. At the top left of the animator, you can see that we have the Layers and Parameters tab. Let's go to the Layers tab. You can see we have a few additive layers for head look, body look, and lean. But if you go to the base layer, that's where you'll see the majority of our Locomotion setup. You can see it defaults to idle, we have Locomotion, crouching, and more. To keep things simple, instead of modifying this, we're going to create a new layer for our bow animations. Let's do that now by clicking the plus icon in the layer area and calling the new layer BowAim. The name needs to match exactly for our script that we'll add later. Now that we have our BowAim animation layer, let's test it out by placing an animation in it. Let's go to the Animation Bow Combat folder, go to Animations, go to Sidekicks, and then we're going to go to Neutral, Standing, and Idle. Here we can find the animation idle we'd like. In this case, I'm going to take the second one, which is one with the bow held down. Once we found the animation we'd like, we can simply drag it into our animator. Since it's the first animation, it's going to be set as the default animation by default. However, our animation layer isn't actually going to show up yet. Let's click the gear icon to go to its settings, and as you can see, the weight is set to 0. The blending mode is properly override, but let's change the weight to 1 so that by default, this layer will override all other animation layers. Since it's at the bottom of the layer stack, it'll also override the layers above it. Now let's hit play and see what happens. As you can see, our bow animation is working, but our character is sliding around. This is because the animation is overriding all the other animation layers. What we want to do is get the bow animations blending on the upper body. By doing that, we can combine bow animations with our existing Locomotion controller. To do this, we're going to use an avatar mask. This will allow us to easily pick and choose which part of the humanoid character the animation layer controls. If we go to the gear icon on our BowAim, we can see that there's a slot for mask. Let's click that now, and we can see that there's already 2 existing masks. I'm just going to click one, but this is mainly just so that we can get to its folder inside the asset browser. We'll create a mask there in the same folder to keep things organized. If we select that avatar mask, you can see that there's a humanoid character on the right with several sections which are all green. We're going to create our own avatar mask. Let's do that now by right-clicking in the asset browser, going to Create, going to Animation, and creating an avatar mask. When we name it, let's call it mask_upper body. Next, we're going to click to disable all the sections we want to disable. Let's click the legs, the feet IK, and also make sure you get the root circle at the bottom. When you're done, only the upper body should be green. Now we can go back to the gear icon on our BowAim layer and set the mask to the upper body mask that we just made. Now it should be ready to test out. If we go to the scene and hit play, we should see that our upper body is playing our bow animation layer, while the lower body is playing the locomotion layer. This is working, including the ability to lock onto objects. However, we'd like to spruce this up a bit, including the ability to aim, draw back our bow, and have the character face the proper direction. To do this, we're going to import a gameplay script I've made and then connect it to the state machine in our bow animation layer. To do this, I'm first going to navigate to the existing scripts. They're in the animation base locomotion folder under samples and then scripts. There, I'm going to right click, go to create, then I'm going to go to scripting and create a new mono behavior script. We're going to call this script BowAimLayerController, and the name has to match. Once that's done, we're going to double click our script to open it in our code editor of choice. If you need help setting that up, see the video in the description. Once we've loaded our script, we're going to hit Ctrl A to select everything and then Ctrl V to replace it with a script that I've copied. You can find the script that I've copied in the description. The script is rather lengthy, but everything is commented if you'd like to know what everything does. The gist of this script is that it's going to aim our character where we're looking, and it's also going to make it so that we can hold right click to aim and hold left click to shoot. It's also going to make it so that we can press F to equip our bow, which is where we're going to start. Let's minimize our code editor and go back to Unity. Once we're back in Unity, our code will compile quickly. Once our code is compiled, we're able to add our script to our character. Let's right click the root of our player in the hierarchy, go to Prefab, and unpack completely. Now let's select the child game object sidekick Synty character, and here we can minimize the other components and then add the new script that we made, the BowAim layer component, as a new component. Let's just drag the script over. You can see that our new script has a few parameters, including some references that we need to set. Let's click the icon here for the input reader and choose the input reader on our character. Then we're going to have to set the animator. Let's drag the animator component from above and drag it into the field. Then we need to set the camera transform. Let's drag the object called main camera into that field from our player in the hierarchy. You can see that our script has a few parameters that you can modify if you'd like. Another thing our script does, like I said, is it allows us to hold right click to aim, left click to shoot, and press F to equip our bow. We'll need to set up our animation controller to account for these new features. Let's do that now by clicking our animation controller reference to navigate to it quickly and then opening it up. First, let's go back to the settings for our BowAim animation layer. We're going to set the weight back to 0. The script we just added dynamically enables this animation layer when we equip our bow. Our script also modifies a few parameters that we'll need to add. Let's go to the parameters tab and click the plus icon and add a boolean. We're going to call this one isAiming. Then we're going to add another boolean and call it isDrawing. Finally, we'll add one more parameter, but this one is going to be a trigger, and we're going to call this one fire. To briefly explain how the script works, when we hold right click, we enter the aiming stance. Then, when we hold down left click, we start shooting, winding up the bow and drawing it. And then when we release left click, we're going to fire. Our BowAim layer will also activate when we equip a bow, and if we have an animation in that layer called equip, that animation will restart. Let's add that equip animation now so that we can see our character equip our bow. I'm just going to find that equip animation by navigating to our animation bow combat pack, going to the animations, sidekicks, neutral, standing, idle. Here, we'll be able to look for our bow equip animation. Once we found our bow equip animation, we can drag it into our animation controller. In this case, this animation came with 2 clips. We're just going to delete the second one. We only need the first one. You can see that the first animation we added is still orange. Off the entry, there's an arrow that goes to it. Let's right-click the new equip animation we added and set it as the default layer state. That means this will be the first animation that plays when this animation layer is used. However, after this equip animation plays, we want it to go to the idle. So let's right-click the equip animation, click Make Transition, and then click on the other animation that we already added. If we select the arrow to see the transition settings, we can see that it has exit time enabled. This is good. This means that the equip animation will complete playing before it goes to the next animation. Speaking of the equip animation, let's select that again and rename it to equip. The reason we need to do this is the script tells the equip animation to replay when we equip the bow. Otherwise, it's going to start in the idle since the animation already played. Now we're nearly ready to test this out, but we need to actually add a bow to our character. Let's go back to our scene view and try and select a bow from one of the other archers already in the scene. Once we've successfully selected that bow, we can press Ctrl C to copy it. Then we're going to need to go to the bone hierarchy for our character. Let's go to our character in the hierarchy now and start expanding the bone list. You can hold Alt while clicking the bones to expand all of them at once, but I don't do that until halfway through because I forgot. We're looking for the bone called prop_L, which is under the left arm. If we go under the left arm, we can look for that and then find it. Let's select that and press Ctrl V to paste the bow. However, this actually pastes it as a sibling rather than a child. Let's make sure we drag the bow under the prop L bone so that it's properly a child, not a sibling. Then you're going to want to zero out the position and rotation. Just set them all to 0 and the bow should be in the right spot. Now we need to tell the script which item is the bow to show and hide it. Let's go back to our sidekick Synty character and go to our bow script. There you can see it has a section called Equipment Visuals. What we're going to want to do is drag our longbow into that slot. Under the bow script, you can see there's a lot of settings we can modify, like the blend equip speed. Let's just change that to 10 so the bow will equip smoother. We should now be ready to test it out. Let's hit play. We should be able to hit F, see it make the bow appear, play the equip animation, and then transition into the idle animation. Let's try that now. I hit F, and as you can see, it equipped the bow. Also, we're still able to move with the locomotion animations while the bow is equipped. Next, let's make it so that we can aim and draw the bow. We'll need to get back to our animation controller. We can take a shortcut to get there by selecting our sidekick Synty character under our player in the hierarchy. Then we can go to the animator in the inspector and click the animation controller reference to get to it quickly. Or we can just click the animator tab that we already had open. Once we're back in here, I'm just going to select the original animation we added, the bow idle, and name it bow idle. Let's just keep these named and organized so we don't get confused with what animations we're working with. Now we're going to navigate to the animation bow combat folder, go to animations, sidekick, neutral, and find standing, and go to the aim folder. We're going to set up the aim animations. Here you'll notice we have 5 animations. Those aiming animations include undrawn, aiming to draw, drawn, and then drawn with the arm shaking. Let's drag them into the animator now and give them names. We'll start with aiming undrawn. We'll drag that into our animator and call it aim idle. We'll continue next with the aiming to drawn animation. We'll drag that into our animator and call it draw. We'll continue the process with the aiming drawn animation and call it drawn. Then we'll add our last animation, which is going to be aiming drawn shaking. We'll call that one shake. Now we need to set up transitions between these animations. Let's just arrange it in a nice pretty bow shape and then we can set that up. First, let's right click bow idle. Let's click make transition and then left click aim idle. We'll transition from the bow idle to the aim idle. To do that, let's select the transition and then click the plus icon under conditions and set is aiming to true. What this means is that the animation will transition from the bow idle to the aim idle if is aiming is true, which happens when we hold the right click. You can also control how the animations transition in the settings area. We also want to disable has exit time because we want this animation to start as soon as we hold right click. Without doing this, it'll wait until the bow idle animation completes before transitioning. Now we need to set it so that we can transition back to the bow idle if we stop holding right click. Let's right click aim idle, click make transition, and then left click bow idle. Let's select the transition and set it so that this happens if is aiming is false. Again, turn off has exit time. Now let's set up the transition to draw our bow. Let's right click aim idle, click make transition, and left click draw. Here, set the condition to is drawing is true. Once again, you'll want to disable has exit time because you want this to be able to interrupt the aiming. Now we'll set up the transition from draw to drawn by right clicking draw, click make transition, and click draw. This time, we're going to leave has exit time on because we want the draw animation to complete and then be in the drawn animation. We'll do the same thing from drawn to shake. Right click drawn, click make transition, and left click shake. We'll leave has exit time on as the default condition. Basically, the drawn animation will play and then after that, your arms will start shaking from the intensity. We'll also set up a temporary transition back before we add the shooting animations. Let's right click shake, click make transition, and connect it back to the bow idle. We'll set the condition to be is drawing is false and turn off has exit time. We're also going to add an exit for drawn. We'll right click the drawn animation, click make transition, and connect it back to bow idle. Technically, these probably should have been connected back to aim idle, not bow idle, because aiming is still true even if drawing isn't, but it will transition to aim idle because of the transitions we have from bow idle. We're ready to test this out, but before we do, let's just modify a few settings in the player camera. Let's go to the player in the hierarchy and then go to pf_Synty camera. There's a few settings we can modify to control the camera here. I'm going to modify the camera horizontal offset to be 0.3 just so that the camera is offset a little bit. I'm also going to set it to hide the cursor so we don't have the cursor being annoying. Now we can test the full animation state. As you can see, our lower body is able to walk around and we're able to equip the bow. Once it's equipped, we're still able to walk around with the bow. Also, we can hold right click to aim. We can move around with the bow equipped. We're also able to lock onto the target. If we strafe around it, it keeps looking at the target. Then, we're able to aim and draw. Let's hold down left click. As you can see, it draws the bow, and if we hold it down long enough, the arms will start to shake from the shaking animation. If we release, it'll stop aiming the bow. You can see that after we release, it's going to the bow idle and then back to the aiming idle. We'll fix that by adding shooting. The process to add shooting is pretty similar as the process we've been following so far. First, we're going to go to the shoot folder in the bow combat animations, and then find a shooting animation. There's quite a few shooting animations to choose from, including crouch shooting and shooting that goes into a reload. In this case, we're just going to choose a standing shoot that goes into an aim idle. You can tell by the file name how the animation is meant to be used. For example, the animation we're going to use here is called bow stand shoot to aiming. That means it's meant for the standing position and it plays a shooting animation and then goes into an aiming position. You can also do a shooting into a reload, for example. The A at the beginning stands for animation, the mod stands for modular or polygon characters, whether it's sidekicks or polygon, and the bow stands for which pack it's from, in this case the bow combat pack, in case you were wondering. This animation also has 2 clips, and we're just going to delete the second one again. We only need the first one for this case. Let's select our animation and give it the name shoot. Then we're going to right click our shake animation and create a new transition and connect that to shoot. Let's select that transition and turn off has exit time. This time we're going to give it a condition of a trigger event, and the trigger is going to be fire. Let's also do the same thing with the drawn animation. We can connect drawn to shoot so that you can shoot while drawn before the hands are shaking. That way you can shoot from either position. Once again, turn off has exit time and give it a condition of fire. We can also connect draw to shoot. You don't have to do this part, but it allows you to quick shoot. You can make the arrow fly less with your game code if you wanted when you added the shooting functionality. With that done, we can now make a transition from shoot to aim idle. For this transition, you want to leave has exit time on, that way the full shooting animation will play. Next, we'll remove the temporary connection between shake and bow idle, since if you release your drawing, it's going to shoot now. You should do the same thing with the transition between drawn and bow idle, but I forgot here. However, it should still work good, so let's hit play and test it out. As you can see, we're able to hit F to draw our bow, hold down right click to aim, hold down left click, and we draw our arrow, our hands start trembling, and then we play the shooting animation. We're able to move around while aiming, we're able to lock on, aim, shoot, and move. Our hand will also shake if we hold the draw too long. As you can see, avatar masks are a powerful feature that allow you to control animation layers. We were able to easily create a new animation state machine and add bow animations on top of the existing animation Locomotion. By using the process we've used in this video, you can account for more gameplay states, such as reloading or crouching, special animations such as shooting, jumping, and more. I'll next show you how you can replace the dummy character with a character of your own. I've used the Synty Sidekick Character Creator tool to create an elven archer character who has a cool robot arm. Let's replace the dummy with her. I'll drag her prefab into the scene and then right click her in the hierarchy and go to prefab, unpack completely. Now if we expand her in the hierarchy, you can see we have the mesh as well as the skeleton, starting with root. We need to move those into our player. Let's expand our player and close everything else so that we can see a bit more easily. If we delete the dummy and its skeleton right now, it'll delete the bow since the bow is attached to it. Let's grab the bow and drag it off the player in the hierarchy. This way it won't be attached anymore. Now we can select the skeleton, called root, and the mesh, which has the name of the dummy. We're going to delete those, and then we're going to select the mesh and the root inside our sidekicks prefab that we dragged into the level and bring them into our player. You'll want to make sure they're in the same spot as the old ones under the sidekick Synty character. Then we can zero them out. Go to the transform area and set their position and rotations all to 0. The bow is in the right spot, but we need to reattach it. Let's expand the skeleton by holding Alt while we click it and find Prop L on the left arm. Then let's drag the bow onto that to attach it. We're now ready to play using the sidekick character that we made. Let's hit play and check it out. As you can see, everything is transferred over to our new character. We can use this same process to make more characters if we want. For the final step in this video, I'll show you how we can make a prefab of the character we just set up so that we don't need to set it up again. All we need to do is drag our player from the hierarchy into our asset browser. That'll make it a prefab. Now, we can go to our Elven Realm scene and check out how our character looks in that scene. Now, let's find a nice position in this world to place our character, maybe over here by the tower with a nice view of the Aurora Borealis. Then, all we need to do is drag the prefab that we just made into the world. Hit play and you're ready to go. As you can see, we're now running around the level with the character we made. All of our controls exist too, so we can press F to equip our bow and run around the scene aiming at things. The bow combat animation pack also includes animations for the bow and arrow. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see a follow-up tutorial that goes over how to sync up the bow animations with the character. We can also cover how to make the bow actually shoot a projectile at the same time. I hope you found this tutorial helpful in getting started setting up animations for your character. All of the assets used in this video can be found in the description. Same with all of the scripts. If you'd like to see more tutorials, please like and subscribe and let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.